And a very good morning to you. Welcome to Breakfast with John Kay and Louise Minchin.
Morning. Our headlines today. Europe shuts its doors to the UK as fears grow over the spread of a new variant of coronavirus.
I'm live at the port of Dover where 10,000 lorries pass through here every day. But not today. The sign behind me says it all. French borders closed.
Lewis Hamilton is named BBC Sports Personality of the Year. He wins for a second time after securing a record-equalling 7th Formula One world title.
And Strictly brings some sparkle as Bill and Oti lifted the glitter ball. We'll be speaking to fellow finalist Jamie Lang.
Good morning. For England and Wales today, it's going to be fairly cloudy and wet, but very mild. For Scotland and Northern Ireland, drier for you with some showers in the northwest and some rain sweeping into the south later, but again, much cooler than in the south. I'll have more details in 10 minutes.
Good morning. Monday, the 21st of December, and our top story is that a growing number of countries have shut their borders to the UK in response to the spread of that new variant of coronavirus.
France says it will not accept any passengers or lorries from Britain for 48 hours. The government said it expects severe disruption at ports in Kent. The Prime Minister will discuss the growing crisis at an emergency COBRA meeting later today. John Donnison has the very latest.
After queues of up to 20 miles into Dover last week amid Brexit uncertainty, things could be about to get worse. The port is now shut to all outbound freight and passengers after France closed its border with the UK for 48 hours amid fears about the spread of the new strain of coronavirus.
This is an absolute hammer blow after all the queues that we've had at ports in the last week caused by Brexit stockpiling and, of course, the Christmas rush. So there's real confusion, real uncertainty in the industry tonight.
The Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, has urged hauliers not to travel to Kent. Incoming freight is still permitted, but there are fears some lorry drivers won't want to come to the UK for risk of getting stuck. Dover usually handles around 10,000 lorries a day, delivering nearly 20% of all goods bought and sold here. The Food and Drink Federation has said it's worried about the supply of fresh products over Christmas. And it's not just freight affected. This was Heathrow last night, where passengers were left stranded amid travel bans from much of Europe. Eurostar and Eurotunnel have also suspended all outbound traffic.
We must, I'm afraid, look again at Christmas.
2 days after the Prime Minister announced the new restrictions, he'll chair a meeting of the government's Emergency COBRA Committee this morning to discuss the coronavirus crisis. Meanwhile, government sources have insisted the travel bans won't affect the delivery of COVID vaccines. And all this as trade talks with the EU remain gridlocked as the December 31st Brexit deadline edges closer. John Donnison, BBC News.
Let's get the very latest. Let's cross live to our correspondent in the port of Dover, Simon Jones, who's there for us this morning. Simon, what are you seeing? What are you not seeing?
Well, the port is very, very quiet. You can see at the entrance to the port there are a number of officials basically telling people that they cannot get across the channel. The sign says it all. French borders closed. Now, you can see just on the roundabout here that a number of lorries are turning up. For some, the message doesn't appear to have got through that they cannot cross the channel. So it's going to be a challenging day for the authorities here trying to stop traffic chaos. Now, we know that 10,000 lorries pass through the port each and every day. Where are they all going to go? Well, I spoke to one haulier who's based here in Kent. He was stuck in the queues in the port. He didn't manage to get on a ferry before the 11 p.m. deadline. He simply said, I'm going home. But if you're a foreign haulier, you don't have that option. So what the authorities are doing is turning part of the M20 motorway down there into a giant lorry park that can stack hundreds of vehicles. There's also talk of using a disused airfield here in Kent for another 4,000 lorries. But the message from the government is please, if you're a haulier, do not come to Kent at all. This is likely to continue for at least the next couple of days while the EU decides what to do next. And so it's likely to be a busy time for people here and on the roads too.
Simon Jones in Dover, thank you very much indeed.
Well, there's so much to talk about this morning, isn't there? The Prime Minister is going to chair a meeting of the government's Cobra committee today to address concerns over that significant disruption they're talking about caused by the travel ban. Let's speak to our political correspondent Ian Watson, who's in Westminster. Ian, really get a sense this is very much a moving story. Just to talk about, for example, the borders with France are closed. I mean, is this unprecedented?
It's not unprecedented, but it usually is outside of, for example, wartime. The French borders have been closed, of course, to travellers earlier this year during the first wave of the coronavirus crisis. But what is extraordinary this time is that all freight, unless unaccompanied, is now being stopped for 48 hours. So the flow of goods to and indeed from the continent severely disrupted. Now, the government say they have contingency plans and they're urgently putting further contingency plans in place. That's partly why the Emergency Committee, Cobra, is meeting this morning, and the Prime Minister will be chairing that. But there's also been a whole series of other ministerial meetings. Some will be going on today. Last night, Transport Ministers and Home Office Ministers were meeting initially to deal with the travel disruption that was going to be caused, not just because of the freight problems with France, which is the most major problem that we have, but also, of course, a whole range of other countries imposing travel bans on flights, for example, or arrivals by sea if you're a passenger. That includes Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands. So all these restrictions will be put in place until the EU decides on an approach which affects the whole continent today. There's also been calls, not just because of this particular crisis or this aspect of it, but because of the government's new restrictions, these Tier 4 restrictions in London and the South East, and they changed the Christmas plans. There have been calls from some of Boris Johnson's own MPs, including a former Conservative leader, Ian Duncan-Smith, to have Parliament recalled. OK, well, it's not Ian for the moment. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Christmas. Let's talk about the impact of these new restrictions and the new tiers on festive plans. A couple of updates for you this morning. Christmas bubbles in Northern Ireland are going to be reduced from 5 days to 1 day. It's understood that the Stormont executive agreed that change overnight. There's expected to be some flexibility, though, around which day people can come together to accommodate those who have to work on Christmas Day itself.
Wales has entered another national lockdown and only 2 households can gather on Christmas Day.
Yeah, people there are being told to stay at home and non-essential businesses must shut again. Let's speak to Thomas Morgan, who's in Cardiff for us this morning. And Thomas, another lockdown in Wales. What's been the reaction there?
Well, the lockdown was due to come into force on the 28th when those original Christmas plans were due to end, but the Welsh Government has felt as though they've had to bring it in quicker. It came into force on Saturday evening because the Welsh Government and the Health Minister here said that this new strain of coronavirus is seeded across the whole of Wales as well, and with transmission rates in Wales higher than any of the other 4 nations of the UK, they felt as though they had to put stricter measures in place. Really, there are areas in the South Wales valleys where the transmission rate is above the thousands per 100,000 now, so there is real concern there. 3 of the 7 health boards across Wales have cut non-essential surgeries. Critical care wards across Wales are busier now than they've ever been throughout this pandemic, so there is real concern, and something had to be done to alleviate this strain on the NHS, because there will be a surge over the next 2 weeks as transmission rates continue. So they felt they had to put these measures in so they could suppress the virus as we go into the new year and make sure that the impact on the NHS wasn't as bad as it could be.
OK, Thomas in Cardiff for now. Thank you very much indeed.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.